From the home base in Brookfield, Wisconsin, welcome to the latest episode of Insight, Connect, and Simplify. Roger here, Human Capital Management Consultant with the Benefit Companies. And today, Kathy is back. Again, she's Vice President of the Benefit Companies, and we're going to be talking about payroll. And mostly, your employees really don't care about the technology. They're only concerned that they get paid on the correct day and it's the right amount. But that's really not what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about how do you know when it's time for you to move off of doing it yourself or having an accountant do it, or when's the right time to be doing payroll, and do you want to hand it off to a professional? We're going to talk about some of those things today. So Kathy, thanks for being here again today. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to hit three basic topics. We'll start with, you're doing your payroll in-house, and this can be a company who's just starting out or it's been around for a while. It doesn't matter. Talk about that. We see this all the time. Folks are coming to us asking questions because they're doing payroll in-house, and is now the time to maybe move off of that?
Yeah, definitely. This is such a great topic, and I'm so happy to be talking about this today because we do get calls from companies that are trying to decide if now is the right time to outsource their payroll. So I always start the conversation by asking them, what are you currently doing? How are you currently handling payroll? And a good number of them, like you suggested, whether they're smaller in size or whether they're more of a startup organization, usually start doing payroll, what we call in-house, meaning that they're doing it themselves. So what does that look like for companies that do payroll in-house? They're actually collecting the timesheets from the employees, or gathering the hours, if you will, adding up the hours worked. They're calculating the payroll themselves. They're cutting the checks, whether they're, doing it on the computer or they're literally getting out their company checkbook and they're handwriting the payroll check to the employee and then dispersing it. And then usually what they have to do is gather all of the calculations behind their payroll and get it over to their accountant, who generally will do the quarterly tax filings. So that's kind of the process that we typically see when a company is doing payroll in-house. And I think the short answer to the question, when do you know it's the right time to start looking, is when you have a certain level of complication. And that level of complication can be as simple as we've hired a good number of employees, and it's now getting onerous and very time consuming for us to be doing this manually. Or it could be that we're now expanding our operations, whatever that may be for the business, into other states. One thing I think is really important, and we usually do some education when we talk to clients, if you do have employees that live and work in another state, then you do need to be familiar with the rules and the regulations within that state as far as how you pay your employees. For example, there are states out there that have state-specific taxes. We see it in the form of maybe a transit tax or a paid family leave tax. There can be all types of certain regional taxes that can add a level of complexity that you may not see in the state that you started in. We also see local taxes. This is sort of a new phenomenon that we're seeing spread across the United States, whereby municipalities and local governments are actually adding taxes into payroll. So if you have an employee that lives in a specific county within a tax or a municipality, Cook County is a good example in Chicago, in Illinois. There's a level of complication there. So you might hire somebody to do sales for you that lives in Cook County, but your business is in Wisconsin. You need to be familiar with the complexity of local taxes. So that's all levels of complication that can make it challenging for a company that is doing it in-house.
And maybe this is not the norm, maybe this is the exception, but one of the clients I brought on not too long ago, he was the guy who said, I'm starting up a company. I don't want to do any of this stuff. And in fact, I don't even want to learn it. So when it's time for us to go, you guys are going to do it. So I'm assuming you see that once in a while too.
Definitely. I bet you we see that half the amount of time. Half the amount of time a company will come to us ready to outsource their payroll because it's just gotten to a level of complexity that they know they're not doing things correctly and they worry about the compliance aspect. But then the other half of the time, it's, hey, I just don't have time to do this. I'm an entrepreneur. I need to focus on growing my business. and what my business does. I don't want to handle the administration of it. And, and that's another thing. Sometimes you can have good intentions as a small business, like, hey, we have 10 employees. I can do this myself. Pretty straightforward. Once I get our state unemployment tax rate, and I know how to tax the employees. But then all of a sudden, you might get hit with some garnishments. You might hire some employees that have child support orders or other types of tax levies that you need to now garnish their wages and take that money and send it to those authorities. And again, level of complication and expertise, right? What if you get that wrong? You don't want to get that wrong. So those are the types of things that a company is going to want to think about.
Okay, so that's, again, high level, but overview of folks doing it in their own house. Another aspect of this, or another thing we run into a lot, is that they have some of their professionals lined up, and one of them might be an accountant, and an accountant might be doing that work for them. Now, we know accountants are very good at what they do, but their expertise is not payroll. So talk about what you see when you run into that.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say a good amount of time when we start talking to a company and they're not using what we would call a payroll bureau, which is a formal company that manages payroll for many organizations. If they're not doing it themselves, then we see typically that their accountant is doing it. And you're absolutely right. Most accountants that I have talked to are not necessarily excited about doing payroll. They do it as a service for their clients, but it's not really the core business that they are in, generally speaking. The other thing about accountants is that it's expensive to have your accountant do payroll. Typically, they'll charge you their accountant rates to process payroll, and really what you want to be paying them for is their tax expertise and to help with the tax filings. When you have payroll, I think most people think, oh, I gotta pay my employees, which is absolutely true and important. And you want to issue that paycheck. But then right after you issue the paychecks, you have to file certain tax filings, both with the state and federal government. So here in the state of Wisconsin, for example, you have to file a state unemployment report. You've got your quarterly, what we call the 941 and 940 reports that have to go to the federal government. The 940 is your federal income tax withholding, Medicare and Social Security. And then the 940 is the federal unemployment tax that you have to pay. So making sure you're in compliance with those filings and the frequency that your company needs to adhere to for those filings is very important. And then, of course, you have at the end of the year, all of the year-end reports that have to get filed and the W-2s that have to get issued to your employees so that they can in turn do their own individual tax returns. So what we typically see is the accountants helping with the quarterlies in that regard. If they are doing the payroll, they'll do the payroll and the quarterlies, and then, of course, the W-2s. Or what we might see is a combination of what we talked about first, which is the small business doing it, the paychecks themselves, and then the accountants doing the quarterly filings and W-2s.
So, and as you would expect then, since they're tax experts, you would expect that the quarterly and the year-end stuff is all going to be spot on. But maybe, as you mentioned, first of all, that they're probably doing it as a courtesy. They're not experts in it. It's still probably a very manual process for them because it's still a manual process for the employer. And maybe there's a greater expense involved with that too. I mean, again, I know how we price what we do. I know how other companies go about it. I have no idea what accountants charge.
Yeah, definitely. Well, accountants are tax experts, so they're going to charge more than typically a payroll bureau is going to charge. So you're absolutely right about that. A lot of times accountants, and I shouldn't say a lot of times, I would say fairly frequently we will see accountants use payroll software if they are providing that service for a client. So they may use a payroll platform, but then what they're going to do is wrap their services around that and charge accordingly.
Okay, so we have an idea if you're doing it in-house when you might want to potentially move off of that and maybe also, when the accountant's doing it, we get to a point saying, hey, look, they're not the experts. It's expensive. It's time to move off of that. What about if you're with a payroll provider now and they're just not meeting what you need for service expectations, or it could be price, or whatever it is? What do you see there when we're running into that? Because I know we run into that as well.
You bet. Actually, this is the third category of prospects that I usually talk to when they call us. The third category is that they're with usually a national payroll provider. I'll call them the big box national payroll companies. Everybody's heard of these major payroll companies. It can be the Pays of the world, the Paycoms, Paycors, Paylocity, or ADP. And typically what we'll find is with smaller businesses, sometimes there can be frustrations with the service. So generally speaking, those larger national payroll companies are in the payroll business. They know the payroll business. They understand it. You're going to hire them. They're going to do the paychecks. They're going to do the quarterly filings. They're going to do the year-end W-2s. They'll be able to handle all your garnishments, usually state new hire reporting, which is another function of payroll. But when there are questions or something is not right and you as the small business need to get a hold of them to try to work through a question, generally you're going to put in a request via a ticket or a number, and you're either going to have to wait for somebody to get back to you, or you're going to have to wait on hold to talk to somebody. And typically the frustrations that I hear from small businesses is they just don't have time for that. They can be on hold for a long time, or it could take up to 48 hours for somebody to get back to them. It's never the same person. They have to re-explain the story 5 times, in order to get the answer. So, and that, time is money. And when you're in a small business and you're wearing a number of different hats, it can be hard on the business when you're chewing up that amount of time.
So do you want to just take a short second, talk about when you said service, and it could be 4 or 5 different people who don't know the business, just give them an overview of how we do that slightly different.
Yeah. So really, I like our solution the best, of course, right? But we are what I would call a local payroll provider, but we're in the business of doing payroll. So we do all the things that the big national companies are going to do, but we give you that local support, and we understand very well the tax landscape here in the state of Wisconsin, as well as in all 50 states, because we have companies doing payroll in all 50 states. So what's wonderful about our team is that our payroll team is made up of individuals who come from the large national payroll bureaus, also from local or regional payroll companies, as well as large local businesses that have done payroll themselves. So the level of expertise is very high with our team. And what's wonderful is when a company comes on board with us, we assign them a specific representative to work with. And that payroll representative gets to know the company, they get to know the employees of the company, and the business can email, they can call that representative at any time and get consistent answers and help. Because that's what's important. It doesn't always run smoothly from week to week. You need experts.
Well, and we're setting then with the company, we're figuring out what their expectation is for service, for that callback, for that answer. And we have a dedicated person who understands the company. So then it smooths out that whole process of getting through the question to getting to the answer.
Exactly.
Which is what you were talking about.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay, well, so we kind of touched on 3 basic areas, and we've seen all of them. So people doing their work in-house, people having their accountant do it, or they have a provider and the provider's just not measuring up. We've seen all those. We've handled all those. We've been doing this for 20-some years now.
Yes.
So we've seen most of that, and that's how we approach taking care of folks who want to make a move. So thanks for being here today, Kathy. We're going to talk about some more things down the road, but today, again, a nice overview of how we take care of these folks and what we've seen. Anybody out there who's looking to take a look and get a feel for what's in the marketplace, we're a great place to start there. You can talk to us anytime. Call Kathy directly. She'd love to talk to you and get
Absolutely.
a quote out to you. No obligation. Again, we're local, so we're based in Wisconsin, but we do work nationwide, and we have business in every state, so we know what it's like and what the landscape looks like. So thanks again for listening today. We appreciate you. Be well.
Inside Connect and Simplify is sponsored by the benefit companies and our trademarked human capital management platform, Connect and Simplify. Connect and Simplify integrates payroll, time labor management, human resources, retirement plans, and employee benefits in one single sign-on cloud-based platform. We help you manage your workforce from hire to retire. Go to connectandsimplify.com to learn about all of our products and services, our educational resources, and our relationship with UKG, Ultimate Kronos Group. UKG is our technology partner who gives us best-in-class, state-of-the-art technology so we can give our clients the best solutions for their company. Again, that's connectandsimplify.com. Thanks for listening.